That may not sound very interesting, but he was a wonderful old boy. His name was Billy Lown, Lown. I lived with him in his cottage. It was in my parents' garden, or in the sort of state, you know. And I moved in with him to keep him company when I was about 12. Well, of course, that was the best thing I ever did, because I only had my meals at home, but slept there. Under the stairs. There was only one room downstairs and one room up. And Billy, of course, was a real character, frightened of nothing or no one, but only 5 foot, sort of 6, but built like a brick, you know what. And he used to tell me all sorts of stories of him when I was sitting with him in the evening, you know. And that's where I got a lot of my stories from. And one of the wonderful stories I remember, he always used to say, "Now, boy," he'd say, "don't you borrow or don't you lend any money." "All right, grandfather," I said, "of course not." Of course, I did get a mortgage like everybody else later on, but anyway, he say, "I was sitting on the bench in the village," he say, "one day, and he say, a stranger come along," he said, and sat down beside me. I didn't say nothing to him, he said, but all of a sudden he say to me, "Oh," he said, "I don't suppose you could lend me £1, could you, my Billy?" "Well, that's just how I can, Billy. I can lend you £1. He said, "I got £1 I always lend out." He said, "When I come back, you shall have it."
They said my pressure was up, perhaps I might want to, make an appointment with my doctor to be seen at the hospital. Well, when I got to the hospital, the man I saw was the man that tested my eyes at boots, so obviously he was doing another job, like. So, for years I was using drops, but when I was at 68, I think I had the first operations on my eyes. I can't tell you what the name of it was, but that was to make sort of little hole kind of things, I think, so the stuff drained away and I wasn't getting the pressure. So they kept me going for a long while, but I think when I started getting cataracts, I had the operation for the cataracts, these little holes got sort of blocked up, and from then on my sight started to go. I've been more or less useless now, I should think, for the last 5 years. You lose track of time, don't you? I was still going swimming till the year before last. I couldn't see the edges of the pool, but my daughter Lynn used to swim beside me. And obviously I could feel when I hit the side of the pool. My husband can't drive, and I don't. I could drive, but obviously I haven't driven for a long while, and I never did really have much confidence. But we used to go up to Cromer. We both like Cromer and Sheringham. And what's a place a little bit further up from that? Wells. Those places. There's a long walk till you get to the beach at the end, isn't there? And there would be beach huts at the back, I think, as far as I can remember. And also, in Wells itself, there's a fish and chip shop there, I know, along the quay. Or there used to be years ago, and I think you could get a cup of tea somewhere along there, probably in the fish and chip shop or next door. Yeah, I remember that. But not much else. Probably, time I'd had a walk, that was it. The tide comes in more like across, doesn't it? I know when we went somewhere else, I don't know if it was Jersey, and you could walk out on a causeway. The water came in there very quick. You had to, I think you get this kind of jeep thing back if you were too late with the tide. You really had to watch it. The tide comes somehow across, not frontwards. Do you get what I mean?
Right. There was a snake, a little snake called Petty. And Petty lived with his mother in a pit. Then one day, while Petty was hissing in the pit, his mother said, "Petty, don't hiss in the pit. Go outside the pit to hiss." So Petty went outside the pit to hiss. And after a while, he couldn't resist. He hissed in his mother's pit again. And his mother said, "Listen, Petty, you mustn't hiss in our pit. If you must hiss in a pit, go to Mrs. Potts' pit to hiss in her pit." So Petty went to Mrs. Potts' pit to hiss in her pit. But when he got there, Mrs. Potts wasn't at home. So he hissed in her pit anyway. While Petty was hissing in Mrs. Potts' pit, Mrs. Potts came home. And she said, "Petty, what are you doing hissing in my pit? If you must hiss in a pit, go to your own pit and hiss." Well, this made Petty very sad. And he cried all the way home. And when he got home, his mother said, "Petty, what's the matter? Why are you crying?" Well, he said, "I went to Mrs. Potts' pit to hiss in her pit. She wasn't there, so I hissed in her pit anyway. And while I was hissing in Mrs. Potts' pit, Mrs. Potts came home and caught me hissing in the pit and said, 'Petty, if you must hiss in a pit, go to your own pit and hiss.'" And Petty's mother said, "Why, that mean old woman. I knew Mrs. Potts when she didn't have a pit to hiss in." There you go.
I mean, since my husband died, I've actually gone up to Lynn about a couple of times, every 2 weeks, to do a little shopping on, like, a community bus. And I'll tell you what, I'm glad to get home. I like this way of life better than what I do the town. When we get the geese come flying in, and that's wonderful because, they're backwards and forwards sort of a couple of so times a day, and they really actually land on the field, one of the fields opposite. And also, of course, I can look out and often get a pair of binoculars because I get the hares dancing on the field, which is lovely. I mean, after my husband died, actually, and it was my only way of coping was to suddenly want to get out, and all I would actually do was walk right down to our little village, walk all the way around, and then there's a little tea shop, and then perhaps I'd just nip in there and have myself a drink, and then I'd walk all the way around the village again and home. It was just lovely. I've got a magnolia tree in the back garden, which is nice in the summer because it gives you a bit of shade to sit out there. But it was lovely because the buds start to sort of bud up actually in December, which you wouldn't think that's right, but it does. And now at the moment, because that will flower towards the end of this month. So at the moment, the bud's sort of getting bigger, and that's just lovely to see it. And of course, the leaves won't come on until it flowers. Just all those little things. I think they just lift your spirit.
Well, this old boy, he say, "I'll go and see George. I don't know what he's up to these days." So he said, "Off I go." He said, "Hello, George, how you getting on, boy?" "Oh," he said, "not too good." He said, "Not too good at all." "Why, what's the matter with you?" I say. "Oh," he said, "I've got these cold sores all over my lips." "That's boy," he said, don't you know how to get rid of them?" "No, I don't," he said. "I wish I did." Well, he say, "What do you want to do?" He say, "Down the bottom of the allotment," he said, "I've got an old billy goat tied up there." He said, "What do you want to do is go down there through the hedge and get hold of the old billy goat and kiss its ass. He say, what will that cure my cold sores? No, he said, but that'll stop you keep licking your lips.
When we all left college, we were all sort of at a loose end, not knowing what to do with ourselves. And somebody came up to Norfolk and to Wickmere and sent us all a postcard saying, there's loads of empty properties here, they're really cheap. Come up and have a look at them. And so we homed in, about 12 of us, I suppose, that had all known each other while we were at college. Bunch of hippies. And we moved into these cottages that had been recently vacated by the farm workers. The estate had built a load of sort of council house style houses for the farm workers, and they were only too pleased to move out and into somewhere with electricity and, you know, toilets and stuff like that. And we moved into the old cottages and bought ourselves some oil lamps. We had the honey cart come round every week to pick up our chip buckets and empty them. And we were sort of living the hippie dream out here in Wickmere. Well, they looked at us a bit suspiciously at first. A few of the blokes came round and tried out to see if we were into free love or not. We weren't. Then they left us be. I mean, they were very, you know, we didn't get any nastiness at all. They were very welcoming. If we deigned to talk to them, they were quite happy to talk to us. But we were in our own little bubble, really. Eventually, you know, over the years, we've integrated absolutely fine, and it's such an idyllic place. And you go back out into the world again, go and visit family and friends and stuff outside Norfolk, and you're only too pleased to get back home again because it's a madhouse out there. I was thinking of my neighbour, also a Mrs. Newstead. She used to come out with some rare old things. Oh, that's it, yeah. I'd take her up the paper every day because she liked to read the paper. And I used to take it to her after I'd finished with it. And she used to talk about, one day she got her 2 new pairs of drawers. This is the old long-legged knickers that ladies used to wear in this sort of pink. And she said, these will see me out, gal. These will see me out. So she was showing me her new knickers. Because Norfolk's a very special county. It doesn't go anywhere. It's got all this coastline round it, so you don't get any through traffic at all. So anybody coming to Norfolk is intending to come to Norfolk because you end up in the sea if you try to go through Norfolk.
The Mad March here would sit and stare, sometimes here or over there, not knowing that his life was rare. Man came along with time to spare, with uncaring mind to claim his share. His excuse was sport or maybe game fair. Or was it because he just didn't care? One of these days we'll all say how queer. You never see a Mad March here. I remember you once saw them everywhere. Now it's man's time to sit and stare. Not enough anymore just to say, oh dear. Yeah. End of poetry session.
When we were that age, you see, we could get for free. We could get into one of the little things at King's Lynn. Yeah, the coast, that's it, yes. And then you could stop at one place and have a little walk around, and you could stop, get on another one, and have another. Oh, yes, we did that a lot. It is, I've never been anywhere as nice. And it was always tidy. You know, you go to other places, but the trouble was that there were a lot of rich people. And the one right the other end, which we absolutely loved, I don't know how much you'd have to pay, but they would buy it forever. The rich people, and you, and you. Well, if we were rich, we didn't let anybody know. but yes, they were very uppish. My word, the sunsets. Well, we were just that. Because although in the fen it was lovely, but nothing like the clear that you could look for miles when you were, you know, in Hunstanton. Absolutely beautiful. Yeah. And lots of people, and even young children, you know, were taught to look and see and enjoy it. It was lovely for everybody. So that was, yes, I think I must say that was one of our best things.
Anyway, he used to promote me sort of to learn something about Norfolk and take notice of Norfolk people, because he always maintained that they were basic people and always sort of had a basic sort of knowledge of things. And I always remembered that, him telling me that. He's a nice old boy. He said they had a simple truth and a lot of common sense. I think that's what he was getting at. You know.
I can remember the day when I was 16, walking up to Norwich police station and said, "Is Jack Dunnell there?" And he said, "Yes." He just, you know, he came down. I said, "Hello, I'm Roger." And he palmed me off for £5, which was a lot of money in 1961. He did make contact sort of on and off over the years, you know, but he was like a total stranger, unfortunately. That's life. I was a bit different, you see. I was adopted, and my parents, my father worked on the land, you know. He had a tied sort of house, and I knew I was never cut out to work. I wanted excitement in life, and I think I told you I joined a travelling circus, a travelling Gray's Fair from Norwich. I was with them for half a summer, and I just wanted excitement in life, and that's when I joined the army. That was with my education, you know. I never passed anything, failed 11 plus. But I was pretty savvy with life, you know, and I could sort of talk with them. And in fact, I actually went to London to do an audition as a singer. Amazing enough, you know. When I think about it now, at 15, a country hick going down for a big studio in London to do a song, and it was more or less, don't contact us, we'll contact you. And where I live now, the actual house was a stack, a farm stack, and there was a sort of a farmyard behind, which there was cattle in, and which have now been converted to houses of farm houses, you know. And they built 2 brand new houses in I think it was 89. And amazing enough, I'm now living in the exact place where a stack was, and I'm looking now at that big semi-detached old house, which was built in about 1890, which I was brought up in, and which my parents were when I was adopted in 1950. And I can see the candlesticks on the wall now, and Mum cleaning him with the old brasso. Yeah.
How did you feel after going to somewhere like China or some of the other exciting places you've been? How did you feel coming back to Norfolk?
Well, you always like coming home, don't you?
I am but a fool. Please don't ever leave me. That's why my wife is sitting in the chair and she's looking at me.